Hello everybody, welcome to my channel, The Real Super Sam. Today is a brand new complete history of video, being the first video on my channel in the 2020s, and I hope you enjoy. Happy New Year everyone, we are heading into a fantastic new decade. I'm so excited for the next 10 years, and I am starting it out with one of the best videos of the 2020s already, a complete history of episode on a Spider-Man villain. This is the first complete history of video I'm making on an A-list Spider-Man villain, the most underrated one, Dmitry Smerdikov, aka the Chameleon. In these complete history of videos on my channel, I go through every TV, comic, and game appearance, showing everything of the supervillain under one thumbnail. He has the ability to change his look to be almost anyone he wants and to be in almost an instant, making him a very dangerous person and a hard rogue to defeat, since you never really know who he is. Doing these complete history of videos, I go in order of publication, not chronologically, so for Chameleon, if he was secretly someone else in the past, I don't talk about that until it is revealed later in comics. With that said, I appreciate you clicking on this and I hope you enjoy as we look through the complete history of the Master of Disguise, the Chameleon. Chameleon was Spider-Man's first supervillain he ever fought on March 10th, 1963, in The Amazing Spider-Man #1. The Chameleon is shown to us first here as he's tying up and disguising himself as people he needs to be for short moments to break into labs and secure doors to steal whatever he wants. That night at Chameleon's hideout, he sees that the new superpowered person Spider-Man visited the superhero group the Fantastic Four that day and gets interested in the Spider-Man. Chameleon decides to make Spider-Man a fall guy since Chameleon figures Spider-Man tried to join the FF for money, which he is correct on. To contact Spider-Man, Chameleon makes a new device that will send out messages only Spidey's spider sense can hear, and what do you know, Peter Parker hears the message and goes, hoping to make some money. Chameleon sneaks into a building again to steal missile defense plans. As for his final change, he looks like Spider-Man and fires a web gun to blame it on the real Spider-Man. Spider-Man tracks it down the Chameleon's chopper and stops his plans from going to the Russian sub. Chameleon tries to fling Spider-Man off the copter, but it doesn't work, and Spidey rips the door off with his bare hands. When delivering the Chameleon to the cops, he explains that he was framed, but the Chameleon drops a smoke bomb and runs away. The Chameleon disguises himself as a cop to get Spider-Man in trouble if he detects him, which works, but then, in the scuffle, his shirt rips and the police see and arrest the Chameleon, ending his first adventure. The Chameleon's second appearance was in Amazing Spider-Man issue 15. The issue starts with Spider-Man stopping a robbery, but one member gets away. We learn that it's the Chameleon as he changes the color of his clothes and pulls out a walking stick to act like an old man, so Spider-Man ignores him escaping. The Chameleon gets back to his hideout and takes off his mask as he remembers his first encounter with Spider-Man. Spider-Man is a danger to him, and Spidey is his greatest threat. Spider-Man is too strong for Chameleon to physically tackle, but then he gets an idea. They contact his old friend, Kraven the Hunter, the most dangerous stalker on Earth, to help him with his Spider-Man problem. For Kraven, Chameleon has gathered all the information he can on the wall crawler for Kraven to study. Kraven is here because the hunt for Spider-Man will be interesting for him. At the end, in the final battle with Kraven, Chameleon was impersonating a second Kraven to confuse Spider-Man more, but that failed. Chameleon gets away from the cops and immediately, Chameleon starts selling out Kraven the Hunter to the police. The final show has Chameleon and Kraven in custody on a boat, sailing away from the US. His next appearance wasn't in a Spider-Man story, but in Tales of Suspense issue 58, 3 months later, with Captain America and Iron Man. The Chameleon and Kraven the Hunter have returned, paying someone to smuggle them to shore. Kraven the Hunter and Chameleon argue with each other and eventually part ways. And Iron Man sees that and defeats Kraven. Iron Man doesn't see the Chameleon though, and Chameleon gets to sneak away. Later, Captain America is stopping an attack on an old man, but the old man turns out to be the Chameleon, and he tricks and gasses Captain America, knocking him out and capturing him. With this machine, the Chameleon has all of Captain America's memories and will pull off the most successful impersonation of all time. Captain America escapes the Chameleon's lap, and here he says he's out to warn the Avengers of the Chameleon's threat. Iron Man leaves to get Chameleon, but secretly, the Captain America who told Iron Man the story was the real Chameleon, and he sent Iron Man after the real Captain America. The fight has Iron Man fighting the real Captain America on accident, and in the fight, Captain America wonders if this Iron Man is the real Chameleon. Chameleon's ending here is very pathetic though. He does not have powers, and Giant Man sees him without his mask on and picks him up and drops him between Captain America and Iron Man. And Chameleon goes to jail again, planning to team up with Kraven the Hunter when he returns. His next story was across 3 issues of Tales to Astonish, issue 62 through 64, 2 months later in fall 1964. The Hulk Rogue Leader makes his first appearance here too, and has the Chameleon working for him as a spy where Bruce Banner works as still a robot and secrets. Today, he wants Chameleon to find out what happened to his other spy he sent to that base. Chameleon was the secret threat who was in one panel in issue 60, but we didn't know it until it was Dimitri being the spy. The Chameleon dresses up as a guard to sneak a good look at the Thunderbolt Ross to impersonate him well. It doesn't work since Hulk turns back into Bruce Banner, and so Chameleon bumps into Banner later and assumes his identity to still secrets. But Betty Ross sees through to Chameleon's disguise, and now Chameleon has to get rid of her. Chameleon uses a gamma bomb to threaten Hulk to not come near, and then a patrol comes so Hulk leaves, leaving the Chameleon thinking he was victorious. Chameleon places a bomb to permanently escape the Hulk and gets caught in the blast, leaving a question of if he even survived. But in the next issue, he is seen to survive the blast behind underneath a rock. Then, Chameleon hears of a secret shipment to tell the leader about who he has been working with. Chameleon continues to give the leader information in the next issue, and that's all he does. He was then in Tales to Astonish, issue 66. That is his only panel, still giving information to the leader about the place Bruce Banner works. Chameleon is noted as being leader's most trusted lieutenant here. Enter the Chameleon in the Marvel Superheroes 1966 TV show had the storyline and tales of suspense adapted into animation for his first episode. Chameleon was voiced for the first time here by Tom Harvey. Here, the Chameleon wants to steal Iron Man's managing laser. With it, he doesn't have to physically change his look, but to do it hypnotically with the laser. The first time Chameleon confronts Iron Man, his special grenade weapon knocks Iron Man down under the sea, and then he leaves. Then he goes to the story from Tales from Suspense. Chameleon gets unmasked by Iron Man and Cap, and Giant Man doesn't appear here at all. The ending is very different than the comic. Iron Man stops their plan, and then they get arrested by the Coast Guard. He was in a segment for the Incredible Hulk next, in the episode called Enter the Chameleon, just like his appearance in Tales to Astonish, issue 62, and it is panel for panel the exact same issue. Next, the Chameleon returned to menace our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man in Amazing Spider-Man issue 80, January 1970, the first Spidey comic of the 70s. It starts with something of a mystery. Did Captain George Stacy steal an expensive painting? If not him, who did? No, it was not George Stacy, it was the Chameleon. He's back. He says no one can stop him, for he is the master of disguise. The Chameleon has snuck into a meeting of the largest bond transaction in history. Spider-Man figures out the Chameleon is back, and with his spider-sense sneaks into the meeting room to grab the Chameleon. Chameleon is able to get away in the room and heads outside and changes his looks into someone Spidey knows all too well, Peter Parker, and now Spider-Man has to struggle against Jameson and the cops to unmask this rogue. This is a pretty funny panel where fake Peter Parker throws a bomb at JJ and Spider-Man. Chameleon tries to steal a car and drive off, but Spider-Man just holds the back of the car in place. With Chameleon revealed, all of his previous crimes in the issue get exposed, and Chameleon goes back to jail once again, making this his 3rd out of 4th time being defeated, and 3 times it was because of Spider-Man. About 2.5 years later, he was in The Incredible Hulk, issue 154. Chameleon is back, disguised as Hank Pym, to steal some documents. Hulk has been watching weird, even for the series. It's just made easier for Chameleon to do his job with Hulk acting weird, and has given him an exciting new opportunity. Thanks to Pym and Man's technology, Chameleon has turned Hulk tiny. The Chameleon's newest employer is Hydra. Hulk is still the strongest one there is, at a small height, and escapes Chameleon's hold and punches him in the face, knocking him to the ground, basically taking him out of the story. Later, after Hydra agents are defeated, the Chameleon sees the Hulk and Ant-Man are tiny. Chameleon runs into step on the Hulk and Ant-Man, but Ant-Man gets out of the way and Chameleon steps on Bruce Banner instead. Ant-Man causes Chameleon to trip into the wall, but it ends with Ant-Man thinking Bruce Banner is dead. Chameleon returned in Marvel Team-Up issue 27, November 1st, 1974. The Chameleon is back and dressed as Spider-Man once again. The only time he's done it since his first appearance over 11 years ago. He has framed Spider-Man for a break into a joint. But unfortunately for Chameleon, he crashes his car into the Incredible Hulk. He quickly changes his look to be Rick Jones, the Hulk's best friend. With Rick being the Hulk's best friend, he is going to use this disguise to the fullest. Chameleon uses the Hulk to break a man out named Joe Cord. Chameleon mentions that he owes cord a debt that he can't begin to pay. Hulk does it, and Chameleon reveals that Joe once saved his life when the two of them were kids. Spider-Man exposes the Chameleon in front of everyone, and Chameleon tries to shoot Spider-Man, but Hulk breaks his gun. Hulk grabs Chameleon and tries to force him to make Rick Jones appear. Spider-Man makes Hulk drop him and tells Chameleon he knows that he was the fake Spider-Man committing the break-in earlier that night. Chameleon and Joe try to escape in a taxi but get caught in a giant spider's web. One cop shoots Chameleon, then Joe jumps in between the two and accidentally gets shot and dies. Ending this story on a sad note for the Chameleon. Next came Daredevil issue 134, June 10th, 1976. Someone dressed as Daredevil has killed someone with a machine gun, making him a wanted by the officers. Of course, based on the video, the Chameleon is in a Daredevil issue and in a new costume. He causes a distraction and takes the place of an old man named Mr. Smythe. He took Mr. Smythe's identity to steal his jewels, but the real Mr. Smythe wakes up and exposes Chameleon, so he lowers to running away from everyone. The supervillain in the Torpedo reappears and is after the Chameleon since he heard the chase and wants to do the right thing, but Daredevil just sees or senses him chasing an old man, so he attacks the Torpedo, unknowingly helping the Chameleon. The truth is revealed and Daredevil narrows into the Chameleon with the Torpedo. Chameleon changes into a cop, but he couldn't have done it and fought a tougher enemy today. Daredevil doesn't see his physical disguises and keeps attacking him. The Torpedo also has to go with him and says he doesn't even know who the Chameleon is. Since people think Daredevil really has turned bad, working with the Torpedo and attacking innocent-looking civilians, the two chasing Chameleon run away, and Chameleon's new costume worked wonders for him. The Torpedo goes back to the Chameleon and fights him, but Chameleon changes into looking like the Torpedo, but Daredevil has some fun and tricks Chameleon and then punches him, since Chameleon sucks against the man without fear. Chameleon just won't give up or take a hint and tries to look like another person, but Daredevil punches him again, finally stopping him, and Chameleon goes to jail. Then, a Chameleon appeared in Marvel What If issue 1, February 1977. In this story, the Chameleon drops his plans to make Spider-Man seem like a criminal after Mr. Fantastic vouches for him as he joins the Fantastic Four. 1 year later, he was again in What If issue number 7. This reality showed that Flash Thompson as Spider-Man and him punching the Chameleon, almost killing him in one punch. He returned in the main Amazing Spider-Man title in The Amazing Spider-Man issue 186, November 10th, 1978. This story starts as Spider-Man saves people from a burning building. One guy doesn't appreciate Spider-Man's help, to say the least. That man is actually the Chameleon. He's back in New York for a reason, to ruin Spider-Man. Spider-Man has been cleared by the police as a police-supported hero, and tomorrow, Spidey will be holding a press conference where the Chameleon will show up to distract his greatest enemy. He goes in there as an old lady, then shows his true face to Spider-Man. Spider-Man slaps him down, but then he turns into the old lady again, and everyone starts hating on him. When that happens, the Chameleon starts running away from Spider-Man. Chameleon is doing this all for money, if you are wondering. Who has given the Chameleon this brand new scientific costume, and why is he doing this? Spider-Man is following the Chameleon inside a closed building to find out. Chameleon tries to surprise attack Spidey with an axe, but Spider-Man's spider sense saves him. Spider-Man defeats him with one good solid punch. Spider-Man threatens him and he admits to everything but not who he was working for and goes to jail. He was then in another TV show, Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. John H. Meyer provided his voice for the show. His first appearance was in episode 6 of Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends on October 17th, 1981. Chameleon is going to trick the superheroes Doctor Strange, Firestar, Submariner, Captain America, Shauna the Jungle Queen, Iceman, and Spider-Man to his hideout to capture and kill them all. This is definitely the biggest Chameleon story at the time, and he almost wins if it wasn't for Spider-Man. Spider-Man frees the other heroes who Chameleon captured and was about to blow up, being trapped in his castle and it set to explode. But they get freed and Spider-Man captures the Chameleon, whipping him up to his helicopter. Next, he was in Spider-Man 1981, and his last appearance of the Chameleon being voiced by Meyer, it was in Spider-Man 1981, episode 22, Arsenic and Aunt May on February 6, 1982. The Chameleon is going to get revenge on Spider-Man by attacking Peter Parker, since he takes all of his Spidey pictures, and for that, the Chameleon will use his Aunt May in his plan. The Chameleon is a bit more like Mysterio here. He makes it seem like Uncle Ben is magically back and tells Aunt May that if it wasn't for Spider-Man, he would still be alive. Aunt May tells Peter that she wants to meet Spider-Man, so Peter leaves, then comes back in costume and hangs out with her. But May has a plan to drug him and knock him out for the Doctor, which is really the Chameleon in disguise. Aunt May is really funny in this episode, and she is dark and the opposite of how she treats Peter. Chameleon has a bunch of gadgets and spyware to continue to get May Parker to take out Spider-Man. At the end, Spider-Man figures out the Chameleon's plan thanks to his spider sense and webs him up trying to escape in a Spider-Man costume for some reason. It was a really funny episode, my favorite Chameleon episode that we've had so far, but he was like the villain Mysterio in my opinion. Next, about 6.5 years later, he was in Amazing Spider-Man issue 306, October 10th, 1988. Now, this story really started my favorite moment and the best moment in the Chameleon's criminal life. It shows him walking into an office building using a disguise, then drugs the boss and changes in an instant to look like him to take over his company. For weeks now, the Chameleon has been using this man's money and boss position to stay secret and pay people to do things for him. He was next in issue 307, 10 days later. Everyone who works close with Mr. Duquesne has noticed he's been acting strange lately, but he's the boss, so they think nothing of it. The real Mr. Duquesne is tied up in a closet of a penthouse, being fed through an IV to stay alive. That man is confirmed to be the Chameleon. Chameleon has given up his feud with Spider-Man and is now living smartly, living the good life. The Chameleon has paid for research for a serum that altered his very flesh, making it featureless but malleable, to change his disguises even faster and actually physically realistic now. And this is the first time Chameleon has a belt that helps him change disguises. Chameleon's life goal now is the ultimate destruction of the United States of America, revenge for what they did to him many years ago. The Chameleon the next day has snuck into a meeting of a summer science expo as a police captain and hired some hoods with guns to provide a distraction, and he takes the identity of a professor genius. Chameleon will take his identity to get into labs, steal formulas, so the police don't stop him in any way. He will blow up the original scientist. But Spider-Man is there, and the Chameleon is in another exciting run-in with the wall crawler, but escapes by activating the bomb. Spider-Man places a spider tracer on Chameleon and follows him across the streets. Chameleon takes a bunch of hostages into a building, being mad and dangerous. Spider-Man waits outside with the police to make a plan. Inside, Chameleon finds the tracer on him. Chameleon lets them all go and escapes in the crowd. Spider-Man finds this tracer and admits that Chameleon escaped him this time. He returned a little under a year later, May 1989, in Web of Spider-Man issue 50. The Chameleon has taken over J. Jonah Jameson's life and has him tied up in his room. Chameleon is still trying to destroy America, and it's easier to do it this way than in prison. The same month, he was in the Spectacular Spider-Man issue 150. Once again, Peter Parker gets his spider sense acting up near JJJ like never before. Next month was Web of Spider-Man issue 51. The Chameleon is in a room with members of the Maggia crime gang. He explains that the kingpin of crime, Wilson Fisk, is losing control thanks to the Lobo brothers killing off his men quickly. After a while, they give the Chameleon a card to call since their boss also hates Wilson Fisk. Chameleon later goes to Jameson, feeding him to stay alive, acting creepy as he acts nice to him. Jameson lashes out, but Chameleon just changes into JJ himself and threatens him. Later that night, getting a card from the Maggia family saying Jonas Hero, Chameleon as Jameson goes to a mansion. The Chameleon sneaks into the mansion of Maggia's leader, which is Hammerhead at the moment, and teases him while looking like Kingpin and Spider-Man. And it seems like the Chameleon and Hammerhead are in business together. He was then in Spectacular Spider-Man issue 151. Like the good old days, Spider-Man is in Jameson's office and webbing him up. He asks him secretly, the Chameleon, why he went back to attacking Spider-Man. Now, with those pictures that were taken during the incident, Chameleon will write another hate piece on Spider-Man, and at the same time, Gloria Grant admits to him that she gave one Lobo brother the file on Kingpin that went missing, and Chameleon is even more happy. He and Hammerhead are partners. Spider-Man's reputation is going down. The Lobo brothers will defeat Kingpin, leaving it all open for the Chameleon. He was in the next issue, Web of Spider-Man issue 52. Chameleon is posing as Jameson for another day. During the issue, Jameson escapes and almost makes it out, but Chameleon returns since he forgot Jameson's briefcase, tying JJ back up again. Next was Web of Spider-Man issue 53. As Chameleon is still posing as J. Jonah Jameson, Peter asks him to run a story that would stop a gang massacre, but he doesn't. because if the Lobo brothers succeed in killing Fisk, the Chameleon will be the new crime lord of New York City. He was dead in issue 54. Spider-Man goes to Jameson's office again and asks him why he has changed on his word, but JJ pulls a gun out on him. He also drops a smoke bomb, but Spider-Man tackles him to the ground. And Chameleon's disguise starts coming off, not being able to concentrate well, and Spider-Man sees it wasn't the real Jameson at all, but his old enemy, his first enemy ever, the Chameleon. The roof falls down between the two in the fight, and Chameleon escapes. The same month, he was in Spectacular Spider-Man issue 154. Chameleon and Hammerhead are just waiting now since Jameson is free, so their plan is a setback. Chameleon looks like the arranger to fool Kingpin's men into proceeding with his secret plan. This all came to a mini ending in Web of Spider-Man issue 55, Showdown. The Chameleon finds out there is a peace conference between the Kingpin and the Lobo brothers, so Chameleon and Hammerhead will ruin it to turn it into a gang war. Things work out for them, and the goons that Hammerhead hired cause the Kingpin to look bad, so the other crime bosses think he's losing control. Next, Chameleon made an appearance in Spectacular Spider-Man issue 157. Chameleon and Tombstone have added another villain to their gang, Tombstone. Later, in Web of Spider-Man issue 64, May 1st, 1990, the Chameleon returned with a plan. The Chameleon has hired all the villains Spider-Man fought during the Acts of Vengeance arc to team up all together and hopefully kill the Amazing Spider-Man. Chameleon's genius plan is revealed in the next issue. The villains think they've killed Spider-Man and collect the money from Chameleon, but he's not there. They think Chameleon has conned them, and they see a note about the Kingpin and the Chameleon working together to trick them into killing Spider-Man. So the villains go to get their money from Kingpin and get revenge. Chameleon placed the note there and is now happily watching the villains go take down the Kingpin and thinking Spider-Man is dead. Spider-Man saves the Kingpin's life and gets ridiculed by the Bugle for it. Meanwhile, Chameleon is enjoying his life since the Magia see Kingpin survived Chameleon's trick only by help of Spider-Man. Fisk's days will be at an end for crime. Soon, the Chameleon will take over the Kingpin's empire. June 1990 in Spectacular Spider-Man issue 165 was Chameleon's next appearance. It was just a cameo as the arranger is doing anything to get protection from dying. He was next in a Spectacular Spider-Man issue 166. As a Magia crime meeting, the Chameleon is proving to everyone that the Kingpin is losing control. February 1990, he was in Spider-Man Skating on Thin Ice. It is a one-off, ultimately useless story, but in it, Chameleon gets hauled off to jail again. He was then returned to the Amazing Spider-Man title in issue 340, October 1990. The Chameleon has taken the disguise of a man called Dr. Turner, and in the issue he makes it look like Spider-Man is losing his superpowers, making Spider-Man ask him to remove his spider powers at that moment to quit being Spider-Man forever. This leads to issue 341. It looks like the Chameleon was successful. The machine was from the Tinkerer, and it only suspends Spider-Man's powers, but the after effects give Chameleon multiple possibilities. Tarantula failed to kill Spider-Man in the issue, so now Chameleon will use the Scorpion, and in both instances, Spider-Man will have to show up. Next was issue 342. The Chameleon has given the Scorpion a brand new tail, like the one he had from issue 319, and now for the tail, he will haunt Spider-Man. After he sends the Scorpion off and leaves his hideout to stake somewhere else. At the end, Spidey finds out it was the Chameleon pretending to be Dr. Turner. Then, in Amazing Spider-Man issue 343, January 10th, 1991, the Chameleon finally revealed himself outside the Dr. Turner disguise. This is also a great Spider-Man moment, realizing he never really lost his spider powers and the Chameleon does know Spider-Man's character very well. In the end, Chameleon changes himself into the Black Cat just long enough to help him escape. February 1994 was What If Volume 2, issue 48. After Spider-Man's death, all of the villains are living a good life, including Chameleon, until Punisher kills them all. He was next in Amazing Spider-Man issue 387, March 1994. The Chameleon has followed the Vulture to his hideout and is going to team up with him to kill Spider-Man. Next, he was in issue 388. Here, the Chameleon reveals his true form and will help Vulture get what he wants. The Chameleon has been watching Dr. Benya Skarmshaz to see her studies on life force. Chameleon tells Vulture about his plan for artificial life. The Chameleon also has a plan in action for weeks now. It turns out Richard and Mary Parker are just artificial robots that Chameleon has made and kept track of to learn Spider-Man's secret identity, since Peter Parker takes all of Spider-Man's pictures. With Spider-Man gone, he will be able to rule New York. And not only that, get revenge for his stepbrother, Kraven the Hunter. The robots are about to tell Chameleon Spider-Man's identity, but the real Spider-Man busts into the room to stop it. The robot Mary Parker won't let Richard expose Peter's identity, and they fight, but since Spider-Man's here, the Chameleon programs Richard to turn into a giant killer robot to attack Spider-Man. But Spider-Man overcomes it all, and so Chameleon has nothing left to do but flee. In the same month, in Spider-Man issue 45, part 1 of the 4-part story Pursuit started, with Spider-Man hunting down the Chameleon. Chameleon is hunting Spider-Man down for good now, determined to kill him. As he puts it, the time for subtle has passed. Spider-Man leaves behind the Chameleon a message to where the fight with Chameleon hired goons took place, telling him he can't hide. He also finds a smashed frame with him and his stepbrother Kraven the Hunter. Chameleon misses him, saying Kraven was his greatest friend. Next, still in April 1994, was Spectacular Spider-Man issue 211. Spider-Man has gone to Chameleon, running from safe house to safe house. This time, Spider-Man has set the Chameleon off, calling him a lowlife, and for the Chameleon, he has lost his best friend, his stepbrother Kraven the Hunter, to the wall crawler. He is pretending to be someone else at the moment to throw off suspicion from the neighbors. Chameleon must be forced to carry out this, and his brother's plan, so he thinks. The Chameleon is going to hire an assassin to give him more time. He changes his look to a police captain to do it. The Chameleon, while the assassin Tracer fights Spider-Man, and he leaves and says he wishes he and the Chameleon traded places in death. All the Chameleon left was an empty room, and writing on the wall, "This was the end of the beginning." Next month, he was in Web of Spider-Man issue 112. Spider-Man is getting closer to the Spider Tracer Chameleon dressed as a prison transfer guard is carrying. Spider-Man sees the prison guard laughing at the chaos of the inmates running wild and breaks into a fight Chameleon, shocking Chameleon to dropping his disguise and being rattled by Spider-Man. Spider-Man is serious now, more serious than he's ever been, no jokes, and at full strength rage getting to the Chameleon. Chameleon makes it so Kraven's old mansion and changes into him, ending this pursuit of Spider-Man in the name of his stepbrother. Chameleon will finish the hunt Kraven failed with Spider-Man, and throw at him everything he's got. To end the story, and in my opinion the greatest Chameleon story ever told, came in Amazing Spider-Man issue 389. Using Kraven the Hunter's tricks and weapons of his house, they aren't even enough to slow Spider-Man down. Chameleon idolized Kraven, wanted to be like him, but Kraven didn't care. Tonight, Chameleon is Kraven the Hunter, and the Hunter will finally get his prey. Chameleon plays tricks with Spider-Man that just get him madder. Spider-Man gets to the Chameleon and easily stops his frontal attack, breaking his hand and exposing what he sees in Chameleon, a coward who will never strike his neck out for a fight. He then turns into Peter Parker and talks to him, distracting Spider-Man enough to shoot him with a bioelectric blast from Kraven's costume eyes. But instead of continuing the fight, he runs away from Spider-Man. Chameleon realizes he has always been nothing in the family to anybody, just a fake, just a slave. Now Chameleon loses it thinking Kraven was his friend, then the truth about thinking he hates Kraven for beating him up and abusing him his whole life. This drives him to the point of suicide, a coward's death for him. But Spider-Man stops him to not get cheated out of his revenge. Chameleon changes his personality entirely, begging Spider-Man for forgiveness and pity. Chameleon breaks, changing faces like crazy and admitting to Spider-Man and to himself that he is a nothing. This is his way of pleading for mercy so Spider-Man doesn't kill him. Spider-Man just whips him down, too pathetic to even look at this sad thing Chameleon has turned into, leaving him for the cops and Ravencroft. Next was a little What If Volume 2, Issue 61, month May 1994. Stuff has happened differently, and now the world thinks Spider-Man is a criminal, and he finds out his fake parents were because of the Chameleon. Spider-Man grabs Chameleon, yelling at him for the truth, as mad as he was in Pursuit. Chameleon tells him and turns into MJ, so Spidey doesn't kill him, but he flips out and actually does, ending his part in this What If. October 1994, he was in Web of Spider-Man issue 117, which was the official start to the Clone Saga. Judas Traveler is walking through the halls of Ravencroft and sees the Chameleon sitting as a lifeless shell of a man, a hollow reflection of his foes. Then came Amazing Spider-Man 394 in the same month. Spider-Man, while in Ravencroft, sees the Chameleon after pursuit. The Chameleon has gone mad, always changing faces and speaking jumbled words. Here, he keeps saying nothing. February 13th, 1995, Chameleon was in the video game Spider-Man the Animated Series, just called Spider-Man. On June 11th, 1995 was the air date of Spider-Man the Animated Series, Episode 13, Day of the Chameleon, his first appearance on the show. The Chameleon himself never had a voice actor here, always silent looking like himself. Jim Cummins did provide a few grunts for Chameleon in one episode in Season 5 though. It starts with a man getting chased by some special agents. While escaping, he gets in a helicopter crash and Spider-Man saves him. When he turns the corner, he changes his disguise to who he really is, the Chameleon, and walks away in another disguise. We learn in this episode those were agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and they're after the Chameleon, a terrorist who was to destroy America, like his comics in the early 90s. They believe Chameleon will be at Jameson's fancy party for a peace treaty to ruin it. Chameleon manages to break into the Bugle to steal files and escapes S.H.I.E.L.D. and Spider-Man with tricks and changing into a bunch of looks for iconic Bugle workers. He finally gets away by looking like Peter Parker and kissing Mary Jane for no suspicions. During the party, he sneaks in by breaking through a window like a spy. Spider-Man surprises him, but Chameleon uses a gas again to get him to escape. To throw everybody off, he changes into Spider-Man and S.H.I.E.L.D. doesn't know which one to fight. At the end, he disguises himself as Nick Fury, but the file from the Daily Bugle office was backwards, so Chameleon was wearing the eye patch on the wrong eye. He steals their helicopter and flies away, but gets shot down into the ocean, apparently dying. During the last minute of the episode, Chameleon, looking like Peter Parker, goes to the peace treaty signing, trying to assassinate them, but Spider-Man, the real Peter Parker himself, stops it, sending him to prison. He was then in the comic Amazing Spider-Man issue 403. Judas Traveler's holding a trial against Spider-Man with characters like Chameleon and Shriek as the jury. September 9th, 1995 was Spider-Man the Animated Series Episode 14 premiere date. The Chameleon is contacted by the Kingpin of Crime to break all the other villains out, and to do that, he gives him his belt back. Chameleon gladly teams up with everyone. To drag Spider-Man out, they use Chameleon to make it look like Spider-Man has changed sides. Spider-Man arrives and fights the Six like Chameleon with a gun looking like Spider-Man, but he gets away with his powers start failing. Spider-Man falls into a trap by the Insidious Six, having to face them all without his spider powers, and at the end shot, it has the Chameleon turn into a witch-faced Aunt May. He was next in episode 15 on September 15th. To protect his Aunt May, Peter Parker must pretend to not be Spider-Man and play along with the Insidious Six plans, as the Chameleon pretends to be a nurse at a fake hospital. When the Insidious Six attack Silvermane's headquarters, Chameleon disguises himself as Hammerhead to lead Silvermane into a trap. To get the real Spider-Man, the Chameleon and Doc Ock, along with the rest of the Sinister Six, bring Peter Parker to the rooftop he says he always meets Spider-Man at. During the fight, when Spider-Man, the real Spider-Man, pretends to be the Chameleon to get the Rhino to hit Shocker and Mysterio, so the Rhino turns to the real Chameleon to beat him up for misleading him. At the end, Chameleon and the rest of the Insidious Six decide to split up. October 1995 had a version of the Chameleon in Spider-Man 2099 Unlimited Series Issue 10. This was the first and so far only appearance of Chameleon 2099. There is this drug being sold illegally called the Chameleon. It gives people superpowers. Some formula hits the guy selling it and turns him into a blob but still alive, ending the drug dealer and stopping the Chameleon 2099. Chameleon was once again in a What If Volume 2 in issue 82, February 1996. This happens in Amazing Spider-Man issue 1. He has infiltrated NASA and to control John Jameson's rocket to prove to everyone he is the greatest spy of all. But he messes up and the rocket comes back down right at him, killing him. Next, it was in Spider-Man the Animated Series Episode 33, Framed, September 21st, 1996. It starts with Chameleon as Spider-Man kidnapping Peter Parker as he is going to jail after being framed by the Kingpin. He is working with the Kingpin and his son Richard Fisk to frame Peter Parker, and here we get a hint at a big future storyline for the show after Richard Fisk tells Chameleon how ironic it was of what's happening to Peter Parker being framed, especially after what Chameleon told them about his parents. He was in the next episode, 34, titled The Man Without Fear. Chameleon here disguises himself as Anna Watson to kidnap Peter Parker again after he escaped death from the last episode. When Daredevil comes in and saves Parker, Chameleon changes into Daredevil but easily gets beaten.
Chameleon, using a tiny laser, escapes and grabs the disc that would free Peter Parker and runs off with it, with Daredevil and Spidey on his tail. He changes his look to Kingpin so Kingpin can escape, but he still gets captured, going to jail. Then, he appeared in Sensational Spider-Man Annual 1, November 1996. This is a retelling of Amazing Spider-Man issue 15, Kraven's first appearance. It opens with the Chameleon going to a store and changing his look to the man running it to rob him. The man starts begging for his life, and Chameleon freaks out, kicking him and yelling at him, calling him a nothing, trying to convince himself that his disguise is a nothing. He goes home thinking about how hard it is for him to always take up so many different roles of individuals so fast for his work. He wants to be himself again, but can't, not until Spider-Man's gone. To stop Spider-Man, Chameleon will call for help from Kraven the Hunter. He admires Kraven, but he hates him, but he needs Kraven to help him get revenge upon Spider-Man. When Kraven gets to New York, he goes to the Chameleon's base. Chameleon is also after the herb potion that gives Kraven his powers, but he yells at and mistreats Chameleon as he tries to get some without his permission. To make him feel lower, Kraven takes off Chameleon's mask, showing wrinkled old nobody Dmitry Smerdyakov in the shadows. After that torment, Kraven lets him drink some, to which he happily obliges. Later, after Spider-Man beats Kraven and leaves him in an alley scared, the Chameleon teases Kraven, but Kraven yells at the Chameleon and says he'll kill him if he ever does it again, reasserting dominance over his stepbrother. Chameleon is scared for his life at that moment, but Kraven soon calms down, and the two walk off together, and Kraven is determined to not fail Chameleon's task. It goes to the end, and Spider-Man unmasks the fake Kraven the Hunter, webbing up the Chameleon. Chameleon, when he's captured, throws Kraven under the bus as if Kraven was the genius. On the boat ride out of the country, Kraven continues to torture the Chameleon by taking and hiding his blank mask. Next month, he was in Spectacular Spider-Man issue 241. At Ravencroft, Dr. Ashley Kafka is treating the Chameleon. He keeps changing faces and personalities to be anybody but himself, because Dmitry Smerdyakov is nothing. That day, the Chameleon escapes his cell and causes a freakout from the doctors. Chameleon wakes up and doesn't realize where he is. Dr. Ashley Kafka was the one who took Chameleon, and in doing so will try to fix him in this place. January 1997 was the next issue in Spectacular Spider-Man issue 242. Chameleon, looking like Spider-Man, tells Dr. Kafka that he's killed being other people. It is now his sole purpose for living. While talking with Chameleon, she splits and tells him that they are in the basement. He tricks her into getting close. Well, maybe it wasn't a trick. But the end result is still the same, as he knocks Dr. Kafka out and runs. In a nice trick, it seemed like Dr. Ashley Kafka was chasing after the Chameleon after revealing that she brought him down to the basement to study him, but it turns out that it's really the Chameleon doing this to officially escape. Chameleon changes his disguise to look like Peter Parker, and another illusion so that it looks like Doc Ock has him dangling over a roof, but of course, those were the two most wrong disguises to use tonight for Spider-Man. Dr. Octopus is dead, and Spider-Man is secretly Peter, so Spider-Man confronts him and Chameleon reveals himself. Spider-Man grabs Chameleon, still mad about what he did to his robot parents. But Chameleon was ready and coated his suit with a chemical that renders others unconscious, even Spider-Man. At the end, Dr. Kafka takes off Spider-Man's mask, showing someone he's never seen before. Before the next issue, Chameleon was in Spider-Man the Animated Series, episode 43 on February 1st, 1997. The Chameleon is such a danger to society in the show, they put him in the highest security prison of all, S.H.I.E.L.D. Before he went to jail though, Herbert Landon gave the Chameleon powers to change his appearance without his belt. They are also able to track Chameleon wherever he is and see what he sees. Since Chameleon is cellmates with the burglar known as the Cat, the Kingpin wants to kidnap him for a king's ransom. During an attack on S.H.I.E.L.D. from the Kingpin, the Chameleon tricks the guard into believing he's Nick Fury to let him out of his cell. He then releases the Cat, and they go outside, where the Kingpin grabs the real Cat, and Chameleon changes disguises to look like the Cat, so no suspicion about the Cat's whereabouts ever would come up. Chameleon then was in Spectacular Spider-Man issue 243. The Chameleon asks Dr. Kafka tries to convince Peter that he isn't really Spider-Man, but having his powers gone and changing his face. Peter breaks off his fake face and yells at Chameleon. It was drugs Chameleon injected into him that made him forget and lose his powers for a while. Now, the Chameleon is in trouble, and if you are wondering, the Chameleon learned his true identity in Ravencroft thanks to Judas Traveler. Chameleon tries to use that info against Peter. Spider-Man takes all of his anger out on Chameleon here and now breaking even his mask. Chameleon blinds into this environment to escape, just like the animal Chameleon. He thinks Peter Parker is everything Dmitry Smerdyakov isn't. Chameleon still thinks he is worthless now, and it is about to get worse as his abusive stepbrother Kraven apparently returns from the grave. He was dead in Spectacular Spider-Man issue 244. Kraven is back and pities the Chameleon, wanting him to get better and respectable. This isn't the original Kraven, but his son, the second Kraven the Hunter, the one that's a mutant. He's gonna help the Chameleon for real. They go to the cave underneath Kraven the Hunter's mansion. There, the Chameleon beats up Kraven and yells at him. He was happy when Kraven killed himself, and he deserved it too. Kraven throws Chameleon, and he wonders why the original Kraven was fascinated by Chameleon, even with him being garbage. The Chameleon gets told that he is a Kravinoff. That gives Chameleon his confidence back with him being part of the Kravinoff family now. Spider-Man finds him and the Chameleon stands up to him. He has Dr. Kafka and John Jameson in Kraven's electric cage from the story Kraven's Last Hunt. He also tells Spider-Man his last name is Kravinoff now, and he says it proudly. The end of the story took place in Spectacular Spider-Man issue 245. Side by side, Spidey and the Chameleon are looking at this place the Chameleon finally has on Spider-Man. John and Kafka aren't hurt, just stunned, and Chameleon doesn't want to kill them unless he has to. This time, the Chameleon has an ace up his sleeve. Spider-Man tries to break them out, but fails. The Chameleon soon drugs him and locks him up in the cage. And while walking away, teases Spider-Man as he goes to visit his wife, presumably to kill her. When he gets there, he kisses her and messes up on his facts, so MJ runs at him with a baseball bat, ruining his disguise. And yeah, Mary Jane beats him up with a bat. Spider-Man didn't even have to do anything, but using his animal Chameleon powers, he escapes. The Chameleon at the end gets hunted by the new Kraven and apparently dies, getting shot in the head by this Kraven. September 19th, 1997 was the Chameleon's return into Spider-Man the Animated Series, episode 54, in his last arc on the show, with the rest of the Insidious Six called the Six Forgotten Warriors. To get World War II secrets, the Kingpin is putting together the Insidious Six again, and he sends Dr. Octopus, Shocker, Scorpion, Rhino, and a new member, Vulture, to break Chameleon out of S.H.I.E.L.D. A week later, episode 55, he looks like a taxi driver and kidnaps a man to help him get the spy secrets. Spidey tries to stop him, but he jumps out of his car. Someone betrays the Kingpin, and when Spider-Man gets captured, his secret base in Russia gets flooded with knockout gas, and they all wake up handcuffed to a wall by Silver Sable. Because one member of the Insidious Six betrayed him, in the end they'll escape. Episode 56, the next week, the Six are being questioned by a Kingpin on who betrayed him. The next week was episode 57. The Chameleon changes his look into Robbie Robertson for Robbie's friend, who is one of the Six Forgotten superheroes, and he has two of the Doomsday keys, which Chameleon grabs after his trick works. Spider-Man webs them out of his hands and he starts running, leading them into a trap between the Six and Kingpin. They fight, and eventually, since Robbie is kidnapped by the Kingpin, the Six win and get all the keys. When the villains have unlocked the door to the Doomsday weapon, the Chameleon takes a step back from the group and shoots his partners in the back, knocking everybody out with gas. Chameleon is one of the two sons of the Red Skull. Chameleon was taught how to use his belt to change looks by Red Skull. He and his brother are doing all this for the Doomsday weapon to free Red Skull and bring him back. Chameleon doesn't do anything at the end of the episode. He gets caught in the Kingpin's grasp and is going to pay for betraying the Six. Chameleon is in the next episode, episode 58, still being held close by Kingpin. This is his last appearance in Spider-Man the Animated Series. Red Skull has turned his other son into this new version of Electro and helps Red Skull and Chameleon to escape. When Electro betrays the Red Skull, Chameleon tries to sneak up on him to shoot him, but Electro feels his energy and hits him with a lightning bolt. Red Skull and Chameleon need the Vortex again, so Chameleon changes his look to fool Captain America long enough to shoot him. Chameleon then tries to run out, but Spider-Man whoops him up, and that's the end of the Chameleon in the show. On December 1998, he was in Spider-Man Chapter 1, Issue 2. Set in a different universe retelling Spider-Man's origin, the Chameleon takes snapshots of Spider-Man's signature so he can take his money he earns while doing shows to finance his criminal career. Chameleon has bought enough equipment to work with Dr. Doom. Doom wants Chameleon to upload a virus to John Jameson's shuttle. Chameleon calls Spider-Man, telling him he stole his money and to meet him at the Daily Bugle in 1 hour. Chameleon has made it so that next time JJJ talks to his kid, the virus will be uploaded onto the spacecraft. He webs up everyone and leaves, framing Spider-Man. Spider-Man chases down Chameleon in his helicopter and captures him. January and February 1999 was the next issues the Chameleon were written in: Captain America, Sentinel of Liberty, issues 5 and 6. Captain America is undercover to check on another man who somehow knows all of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s secrets and spews them out randomly. The Chameleon is pretending to be someone in the hospital to kidnap the guy. Captain America finds him out and they start a chase. He runs into the maximum security room and Captain America has to fight his way through all these people the Chameleon sends after him. While Cap is fighting those people, the guy who knows the S.H.I.E.L.D. secrets seems to know Chameleon's real name. Cap gets the wind knocked out of him from behind to the Chameleon sneaking up. He gets into a helicopter with the man, but changes his look as it seems there are two guys in the pilot, but the Chameleon was the pilot all along, and Cap sees that and hits him. At the end, the Chameleon goes to jail. A few days later, March 1st, 1999, the Chameleon was in the novel Spider-Man: The Gathering of the Sinister Six. This is a novel, so no pictures except the ones drawn by Mark Zick, the man who drew Kraven's Last Hunt, so this description will be very quick. Chameleon is working very closely to the new villain called the Gentleman, and going around either recruiting members like Vulture for a new Sinister Six, or breaking them out of prison like Doc Ock and Electro. Mysterio has a giant plot in this story. At the end, Razorback and Spidey defeat him, sending him to jail, where the Chameleon was in disguise as the driver and takes Mysterio back to the others, ending this book. July 1999, the month I was born, the Chameleon was in Spider-Man Chapter 1, Issue 9. Kraven the Hunter is in town, and Chameleon, his stepbrother, wants revenge on Spider-Man. At the end, there are two Kravens hunting Spider-Man. One is the Chameleon. Here, he actually admits to Spider-Man that this was his doing all along, his master plan for revenge. October 1999, Chameleon was in Webspinner's Tales of Spider-Man, Issue 10. The Chameleon is looking at past newspaper articles of him fighting Spider-Man and gets sad and depressed. His life sucks, and Spidey's is amazing. He was Spider-Man's very first supervillain. Why isn't his life amazing like Spidey's? We then see what he thinks about how interesting Peter Parker's life is, and Chameleon previously dresses up as a mime to take a secret picture of him. The Chameleon is crazy. He is acting out what he and the guy he is about to kill would talk to each other before he is about to kill him, imagining and acting out the guy begging for his life after he did what Chameleon wanted. Chameleon blows up the clown's trailer and ties up that loose end. Today, the Chameleon is pretending to be Peter Parker to get to Aunt May. He goes to the bathroom and plays dress up as Spider-Man. Then, the Chameleon calls to taunt Spider-Man, reminding him he was Spidey's first enemy. He wants to catch up, as he calls it, with Spider-Man. Spider-Man breaks into his hideout but finds nothing except a Chameleon masked dummy with newspaper clippings of him all over it, asking Spider-Man if it was good for him to hurt Chameleon all those times. Chameleon has left to grab his wife, Mary Jane Watson. Next month, he was in issue 11. It starts with Spider-Man getting to Chameleon on top of the George Washington Bridge, holding a gun to Mary Jane. Chameleon did this, knowing it was the place Spider-Man lost Gwen Stacy. Chameleon yells at Spidey to take his mask off, and he does, showing plain old Peter Benjamin Parker. Spider-Man says that he thought the Chameleon was dead, as so did the audience. Chameleon wasn't shot by the second Kraven, but tranked. Chameleon took himself not being dead as his brother telling him to start a new life. Spider-Man, while he's talking, figures out it isn't Mary Jane there, it's just an illusion. The whole time, the Chameleon was pointing the gun at himself. Chameleon has been with the circus the last few months, bringing joy to people as a clown. Chameleon himself was the clown he acted like he killed in the last issue. It was just him killing a previous part of himself. Chameleon couldn't be Eugene, he was a fake. That's why he's doing this. Spider-Man's life is epic, like a storybook to him. He describes his life in this story. A man goes to a doctor asking for help, saying his life is pure sadness and denial. He is wealthy, people love him, but his heart aches. The doctor tells him to go to a circus and watch this famous clown. That man is that clown. He is obsessed with Spider-Man now. He knows everything because he loves him. Well, not like that, but he says it like that, and Peter and the Chameleon share a good laugh about it. This kind of reminds me of the relationship between Batman and the Joker at the end of The Killing Joke. Chameleon, after the laugh, tosses the gun at Spider-Man. It was a fake gun. He just wanted to chat with Peter Parker, Spider-Man. The last thing he'll presumably ever do, as he tosses himself off a bridge and apparently commits suicide from it. Chameleon was referenced in the first console Spider-Man game simply titled Spider-Man on August 24th, 2000. When Spidey and Venom are thinking who's impersonating him, the idea of Chameleon comes into both their heads. April 2000 was Chameleon's appearance on Counter-Earth in Spider-Man Unlimited Volume 2, Issue 5, the last issue of the series. There's a bank robber who can change disguises. Spider-Man and Wolverine on Counter-Earth are fighting him. Originally, he looks like a giant chameleon animal. Spider-Man has no idea how to stop him since he can change into anyone at any time. In the fight, Chameleon looks like Spider-Man, and Wolverine has to choose which one to fight. He chooses the right one and bangs him into a wall. The Chameleon had been killing people to steal their identification chips to be able to change his appearances into them. In November 2000, he was in Spectacular Spider-Man UK issue 67. He didn't really do anything, and I can't find this anywhere. It was just an appearance he had. On July 1st, 2001, he was in Spider-Man Revenge of the Sinister Six. The Sinister Six today, listening to the Chameleon wait to hear about the plan to kill Spider-Man, the Sinister Six decide they will plan a day where Spider-Man will have to relive his greatest failures all over again thanks to the Six. Chameleon has taken a football field captive, with Mary Jane coincidentally being there too. This is referencing Amazing Spider-Man issue 153. Chameleon wants revenge for what happened in Spectacular Spider-Man issue 245. He fails and doesn't succeed thanks to MJ humiliating him again. End of the novel. He was then in Get Kraven issue 1, June 2002. The second Kraven brings Spider-Man to a psychiatric ward which is holding the Chameleon who has lost his mind. Spider-Man and Kraven 2 ask him if he knows where the original Kraven the Hunter is. Chameleon still says that he's dead and starts yelling about how Spider-Man will kill him too. His misunderstanding something, interpreting it as them making him leave his cell, it causes him to break. July 2002 was Get Kraven issue 2. One day, some guards go into Chameleon's cell and he starts acting like he's the original Kraven the Hunter. Chameleon kills the guards and escapes to kill the second Kraven. Next month, he was in issue 3. Chameleon, looking like Kraven, busts into the room Kraven 2 is in and they fight. He truly believes he is Kraven the Hunter now, but he gets beaten at the end. He was in the final issue in December 2002, it was issue 6. Chameleon is impersonating Kraven again and killing people, and that's it. February 25th, 2003, he was in the final Sinister Six trilogy novel, Secret of the Sinister Six. Chameleon and the Six are now going to complete the Gentleman's plan from the beginning that would destroy New York. The Gentleman has been treating the Chameleon so badly, Chameleon kills him at the end and changes his look to represent the Gentleman, and he gets away at the end of the story too. April 2004, he was referenced being in the Ultimate Universe in Ultimate Spider-Man issue 53. Dmitry Smerdikov is listed as a cat burglar. December 2004, he was in Marvel Age Spider-Man issue 14. It was like issue 15 except with some small changes. After Chameleon gets unmasked, Kraven himself takes him out of the hunt. Next, Chameleon was in Marvel Knights Spider-Man issues 10 and 11 in March and April 2005. Chameleon was part of Norman Osborn's Sinister 12. All he does is just kind of stand there. He gets defeated with almost everybody else in a big superhero team-up. In May 2006, the Chameleon made his first appearance in Marvel Adventures in Marvel Adventures Spider-Man issue 13. We're introduced to this Chameleon when he impersonates a man from the army and secretly takes the Mona Lisa from a museum to escape with it the next day. The next day, Peter Parker and his Aunt May are at the museum to see the painting, but the Chameleon as the army man runs away with it and then changes his disguise to a man with a cane, which is when Spider-Man shows up to confront him. Spider-Man leaves, believing that the real robber was already caught. But the Chameleon, while being let out by May Parker, decides to knock her out and assume her identity to get away. So yes, Peter Parker believes that Chameleon is his Aunt May, and funny antics ensue, like he beats up Flash Thompson and yells at the principal for Peter getting in trouble. When Peter gets home, his house is surrounded by police as the painting the Chameleon stole had a tracking device in it. Spider-Man comes in to rescue his aunt, but Chameleon gets the jump on him, and his real Aunt May hates Spider-Man, so the two work together to stop Spidey. But Chameleon makes it a slip-up and insults Peter Parker, so the real May beats Chameleon and causes him to run. At least until Spidey gives him a Falcon Punch. He gets unmasked, presumably having fought Spider-Man before this, and is locked up. In June 2006, he was in Underworld issue 3. Dmitri is here in a bar with a bunch of other villains. That was it. Next, the Chameleon had his own supervillain team in Sensational Spider-Man Volume 2, Issue 29 in October 2006. Chameleon is putting together a team of supervillains to kill Spider-Man called the Exterminators. Today, he is recruiting the Molten Man. Molten Man doesn't want to, but the Chameleon threatens the life of his stepson if he doesn't. Next month, he was in Sensational Spider-Man Issue 30. The Chameleon is being reminded of his past issues with the Parkers. After he jumped off the bridge, he survived and was locked up. The fall caused him to forget Peter Parker was Spider-Man. Now the world knows that Pete is Spider-Man after Civil War. Peter Parker's mask is irrelevant anymore. He had Spidey dead to rights. Now he just has to kill him and his family. The Chameleon has dressed like Peter Parker to trick Aunt May into dropping security and letting him enter Stark Tower. Next month, in December 2006, he was in Sensational Spider-Man Issue 31. Aunt May has drugged the Chameleon secretly. She has been playing him this whole time while he was waiting for an opportunity to kill her. This knocks the Chameleon out. The Chameleon has failed and been humiliated by his Aunt May. April 2007, he was in Punisher War Journal Issue 4. A bunch of the villains from the good old days are at Stiltman's wake after his death. Chameleon talks with Grizzly about his depression. At the end, the Punisher apparently kills them all. September 2007, he was in Supervillain Team-Up MODOK's 11 Issue 1. Chameleon and a bunch of other small-time villains are at the moment have all come to a specific place for promised money. It was planned by MODOK for a supervillain team. The next month, he was in the next issue. The villain Mentallo goes into the Chameleon's mind and finds a bunch of weird stuff and thinks he's Spider-Man. But then he gets more superpowers and kills Mentallo and then leaves his own mind to join the rest of MODOK's 11. The Chameleon, the real Chameleon, was contacted by AIM when he received MODOK's telepathic summons. Chameleon negotiated a payment of $10 million to have his spot on the team be taken by the Adaptoid. April 2008, the Chameleon returned to Marvel Adventures for Marvel Adventures Iron Man Issue 10. In this issue, the Chameleon has disguised himself as Howard Stark to break into Stark Enterprises. He is working for AIM. Chameleon's job here is to transfer all of Iron Man's patients to AIM, but he needs the characters like Rhodey Jones and Spider-Woman to stay away. He changes his look to Iron Man and tells everyone that Spider-Woman is a threat. When Tony escapes and the Chameleon starts to run, not being able to give AIM all of Tony Stark's patents, he decides to change his look to Spider-Woman to make it look like the two are working together. At the end, Pepper Potts knocks out the Chameleon looking like Spider-Woman's secret identity, Jessica Drew. On May 17, 2008, Chameleon was in the Spectacular Spider-Man cartoon show, Episode 10, Persona. Chameleon was voiced by Stephen Blum. Since Chameleon has failed his assignment to get the symbiote and needs money, he decides to pose as Spider-Man and go on a crime spree. To complete the illusion and incriminate the real web-slinger, the Chameleon has his associates Quentin Beck and Finis Mason, future Mysterio and Tinkerer, using their respective special effects and mechanical expertise during each robbery. Chameleon and his crew infiltrate a boat party hosted by the mayor, but Chameleon is looking like Norman Osborn. When Chameleon turns into Spider-Man and starts to rob everyone, the real Spider-Man appears this time in his new symbiote black costume and fights the Chameleon in the classic version. Chameleon is no match for Spidey, but Quentin Beck provides a distraction for the two to try to escape. At the end, the Chameleon flees on boat, and Spider-Man webs the back of it and catches up to him, beats him up, and arrests him. But at the end, he manages to escape the police. February 2009, he was in Amazing Spider-Man President's Day Special 2009, Issue 1. Also in February, he was in Spider-Man Noir Issue 1. In this issue, Chameleon is impersonating the world's J. Jonah Jameson, and we later learned that he was hired with his half-brother Kraven. Chameleon has made Norman Osborn a mask to wear to hide his goblin features in this world. Same month, he was in Marvel Adventures Spider-Man Issue 46. Spider-Man is swinging through the streets and sees an evil Santa running from a store with a bunch of stuff. He catches up to the guy in an alley and rips off his mask to reveal Dr. Octopus. No, it was really the Chameleon, since Doc Ock just went to jail. Chameleon rams into Spider-Man as Spider-Man fires webs into his eyes. He tries to run into a crowd, but he runs into a wall instead, knocking himself out. March 2009, he was in Amazing Spider-Man Issue 583. There are two President Obamas at the moment, and your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man is here to help. The Chameleon fails some questions to find out who's the real one, and so Spidey punches him out. March 2009, he was in Spider-Man Noir issue 2. The Goblin had the Chameleon impersonate J. Jonah Jameson in order to eliminate Ben Urich and set a trap for Spider-Man. Obviously he succeeds, and Spider-Man is coming for Osborn at the end. March 18, 2009, he made his final appearance in the Spectacular Spider-Man episode 26 cartoon show, the show's finale, called Final Curtain. Months later, the Chameleon is hired by Norman Osborn to pose as him in an attempt to redirect suspicion about his alter ego, the Green Goblin. He befriends the Chameleon and tells him everything, even about the Goblin Green. Chameleon was hired to steal Oscorp's secrets for an unknown competitor back in the day, and for that he posed as Norman Osborn and walked into Oscorp on Halloween night. While he is downloading some files, a commotion breaks out and he is alerted that the intruder stole the inhibitor prototype. He runs outside his office and stares in awe as the real Green Goblin, Norman Osborn, flies away with the machine. The Chameleon plays his role to near perfection, except when he apologizes to Spider-Man, apparently unaware of Norman Osborn's personal motto of never apologizing. When the Green Goblin is finally masked and revealed to be Osborn, the Chameleon claims that he is an imposter, but his earlier slip-up leads Harry Osborn to realize the truth and unmask him. Chameleon claims that he didn't sign up on this and parachutes out of the chopper, and that is the end of the Chameleon on the show. April 2009, he was in Spider-Man Noir issue 3, Chameleon's Noir's final appearance. As JJ, Chameleon looks to find dirt on Ben Urich had an Osborn, but doesn't find much, so he gets sent out again to look. Chameleon gets killed as J. Jonah Jameson by Felicia Hardy. Later, when his body is in the morgue, Spider-Man Noir finds out that JJ was Dmitry Smerdikov, aka the Chameleon, a man from a carnival show where he changed his facial features to impersonate anyone. And that's all with the Chameleon Noir. June 2009, he appeared in Marvel Adventures Spider-Man issue 50. He was in a dream where Spidey thinks about all the villains he has fought. He next appeared in Main 616 continuity in Amazing Spider-Man issue 602 in October 2009. A man is tied to a chair, hearing himself talk from earlier, and a man mimicking him perfectly. The Chameleon is back in a new look with a completely blank face. He suffocates the man by throwing a liquid hardening agent on his face to make his mask of the guy, then kills him, melting him in a vat of acid. The man he killed was a performer who dressed up like the Statue of Liberty in the park, and when Peter Parker walks by, he stabs him, knocking him out. He uses blank dummies to look like an ambulance to take Peter away. He takes Peter's face to get into the mayor's office, who is J. Jonah Jameson at the time. He almost remembers Peter Parker, but since it is after one more day, everyone has forgotten Peter's identity. So Chameleon does the same thing to Peter that he does to all the others and then leaves. Next came Amazing Spider-Man issue 603. The Chameleon talks about how living in a person's life one day can tell him everything about them. He meets Mary Jane Watson and learns a lot about Peter's life, and even Brand New Day continuity, Peter Parker's life is interesting to the Chameleon. Later, he gets a call from Pakistan, and he demands his money early since he was insulted. The man tells Chameleon no, and that Chameleon doesn't even know where he lives or his real face. Chameleon tells him to look behind the painting that's behind him. Behind it is a mask of his real face. Chameleon is much more dangerous than giving credit, mostly. After the Chameleon uses someone's face, he rewards it. He used Peter's face to plant a dirty bomb, and now will use it to take care of one of his problems. He goes to see Uncle Ben's grave, then comes back and apparently shoots Harry Osborn. To finish this story, he was in issue 604. Peter Parker survived the acid tank and Chameleon's lair has been compromised. Chameleon thinks it could have been anyone but Spider-Man, so he blows up his old hideout. As a cop, he drives the dirty bomb to the mayor, but Spider-Man figures it out and jumps on the windshield. Spider-Man tussles with Chameleon, but he gets away thanks to JJ's Spider Slayers. Chameleon later is at Janice Troll's mother's house, and he was going to help the relationship between her and her mom, since he took her identity for the drive. Kraven the Hunter's wife shows up, and the two plan their plot against Spider-Man. He was then in Amazing Spider-Man issue 614, December 2009. After Electro goes to prison, Chameleon and Sasha Kravinoff dare to offer him a chance to help them. Next, he was in issue 620, February 2010. Chameleon, dressed up as Jane the Wolf, goes up to Mysterio, who has just escaped Spider-Man, and offers him a role in the revenge against the web-scrawler. He was then in Amazing Spider-Man Digital issue 16, but he was just a cameo.
Next was Amazing Spider-Man issue 635, the end of June 2010. The Chameleon is impersonating the villain Ezekiel Sims, presumed dead at the moment. He tells Spider-Man that the Kraven family went revenge against him and for the original Kraven the Hunter's death, and they are hunting all spider-themed people to do it. The Chameleon reveals that he has been working with Mysterio to help him trick the real Spider-Man to bringing him in here, surrounded in an ambush. Now issue 636. Kraven the Hunter has come back to life and doesn't recognize anyone, even having to sniff the Chameleon. The Chameleon, later being the most down to earth here, explains that maybe Kraven the Hunter wanted to stay dead. He did commit suicide after all. No matter what, Kraven is a little off now. Finally, issue 637. Chameleon and Kraven's son are arguing about leaving since the rules have changed, since Kraven has changed since he was alive. Spider-Man in the black cloth suit is attacking the mansion. Chameleon votes to get out and survive. Spider-Man webs his back and pulls him out a two-story glass window, and we never see him again in the story. In November 2010, he was in Amazing Spider-Man issue 644. A bunch of villains are after Lily Hollister, aka the supervillain Menace's baby. Dr. Octopus has put a bounty on his head, and the Chameleon dresses up as Harry Osborn for Spider-Man to give him the baby. He was next in issue 645. Chameleon has the baby and reports it to Dr. Octopus for money. Spider-Man gets sent to Doc Ock's hiding at the Kravenoff mansion and finds the Chameleon there. He grabs him and he tells Spidey that the baby is still alive. Chameleon tells him he had the baby, but the villain Lizard came by and just took it out of his hands. He skipped one issue and was in issue 647. Chameleon makes a cameo appearance here. He would make an appearance in Amazing Spider-Man issue 648, November 2010. Chameleon, dressed up like Captain America, is working with Electro to place some Octobots everywhere. February 2011, he was in What If Spider-Man. Chameleon is shown in the background after it's changed. Spider-Man did kill Kraven and Grim Hunt here. April 27, 2011, he was in Amazing Spider-Man issue 659. The Future Foundation found themselves fighting zombie pirates today. So the Chameleon and Mysterio's trick of zombie pirates attacking the Future Foundation failed, so they revealed themselves, and reveals who else is with him in these caves. Yes, this is the first time the Chameleon has been a member of the Sinister Six in the comics. He was then in Amazing Spider-Man issue 660. Chameleon uses his fighting skills to hold his own against Spider-Man, at least for one panel. Mysterio and Chameleon decide to escape, being how they're the only ones without superpowers, and things are getting weird around there. May 18th, 2011, he was in Avengers Academy issue 14. The Chameleon disguises himself as a Tigra to break into the Academy for the Sinister Six. On October 4th, 2011, he was in an Easter egg for the video game Spider-Man Edge of Time. In the collectible newspapers, it showed the Chameleon from the original Shattered Dimensions timeline as a villain, then in the new Edge of Time timeline as a game show host. December 21st, 2011, he was in Amazing Spider-Man issue 676. The Chameleon is secretly in the supervillain group known as Intelligia as Claw to give information to the Sinister Six. The Sinister Six thinks that the Chameleon find their secret base, and Chameleon lowers their defenses and they break in. The Tinkerer is the one to unmask Dimitri. With Claw's powers, he shoots Monarch in the head, so he can't use telepathy on them all. At the end, the Sinister Six destroyed their greatest threat, Intelligia. February 2012, Chameleon made his last Marvel Adventures appearance in Marvel Adventures Spider-Man Volume 2, issue 21. In the second story of the comic, the Chameleon has taken over the life of a manager, and now the girl, the richest 14-year-old girl on the planet, to steal her $2 million. Spider-Man defeats him in the end. He was there in Amazing Spider-Man issue 681, March 2012. The last page shows the Chameleon with the rest of the Sinister Six ready for attack. He was next in issue 682, March 21st, 2012. Chameleon questions Dr. Octopus about their plan, like what if the Avengers try to stop them? Of course, he was in the next issue. The Chameleon is breaking into a warehouse to steal an Iron Man armor and gets it for the Sinister Six. Al Gore, environmental activist, is apparently okay with Dr. Octopus's plan to end global warming with his machines all over the globe floating in outer space, but Spidey isn't and pounds him. Spider-Man unmasks Chameleon he knocked out, as the real Al Gore he locked in a closet. But thanks to Doc Ock's threat, the Chameleon manages to just walk away. The Sinister Six regroup away from their base because the Chameleon had a spider tracer on his back. The Avengers are coming for them, and Chameleon will be the one to control the giant robot. The Red Hulk tries to tear it open, but Chameleon informs him that Otto Octavius is smarter than that and blasts Red Hulk, knocking him out. Issue 684. Dr. Octopus demands for each member of the Six to have clean records and $2 billion for his help to save the Earth, meaning someone like Chameleon can literally be anyone now. Next was Amazing Spider-Man issue 685. In it, Chameleon brings up the fact that the Six should just stop. They have clean records now and $2 billion, but Ock disagrees. May 23, 2012 was Chameleon's last part in Ends of the Earth and Amazing Spider-Man issue 686. Chameleon and Mysterio are delaying Spider-Man for Ock as they use their skills to make it seem like Doc Ock has burned an entire hemisphere and people are dying, needing Spidey's help all around them. And Chameleon will make his appearance as fake Dr. Octopus. Chameleon gets defeated and helps Black Widow, Spider-Man, and Silver Sable, since apparently Black Widow knows secret things about the Chameleon even the Kravinoffs don't know. That ends his part in Ends of the Earth. Marvel Universe Ultimate Spider-Man issue 10 had Chameleon's first and only appearance in that show, and it was in comic form March 2013. A man has robbed a bank and Spider-Man tackles him down, unmasks him to see the Chameleon. Chameleon has a mind control device that lets him rob banks just by walking in as a normal person, but Spidey whips his mouth shut to stop him. Spider-Man has to save Chameleon from the crowd below, who accidentally view him as a monster thanks to J. Jonah Jameson and his device messing up, and then he goes to jail. July 2013 had the return of the Chameleon in Avenging Spider-Man issue 20 through 21. Russia is hiring assassins to kill the Chameleon because he knows too much of their secrets. Chameleon is in S.H.I.E.L.D. custody after his involvement with the Sinister Six. Chameleon is getting questioned by a doctor regularly in prison, and he reveals what he's afraid of being seen. The Russians use special power robots to break into S.H.I.E.L.D. and kill Chameleon. Chameleon manages to escape his cell and looks like one of the doctors. Spider-Man gets him and tears off his mask. Chameleon stabs Spidey in the neck and runs out. Then the robot catches up to Dimitri. I guess this is a good panel to tell you guys that this isn't Peter Parker's Spider-Man right now, and he won't be back for a while. This is Dr. Octopus in Spider-Man's body. He saves Chameleon's life but then knocks him out. And we see Chameleon held up in a secret lab of the Superior Spider-Mans, where the other Sinister Six members are. In September 2013, he was in Superior Team-Up issue 1. We see Octavius settle on the idea that he doesn't need the Fantastic Four or the Avengers, but his own superior team. In the same month, he was in the first issue of Superior Foes of Spider-Man. The rogue Boomerang is in jail and meeting with the Chameleon. Boomerang owes the Chameleon money. Boomerang now serves the Chameleon. Next month, he was in the second issue. Chameleon dressed up as the Punisher comes shooting into a restaurant, and Boomerang is the last one left, since he's drunk there for Chameleon to talk to. Chameleon has Boomerang work for him so he can get the head of Silvio Silvermane, because with it, he will get a lot of money returning it to the Magia and become their boss. December 2013, he was in issue 4. Chameleon can basically leave and return to prison whenever he wants with his sweet villain skills, and Boomerang is visiting him in prison today. In one day, Chameleon will either have Silvermane's head or Boomerang's. Also, in the same month, he was in Superior Team-Up issue 5. Today, Dr. Octopus is revealing his own superhero team to the world, the Superior Six, with Chameleon in his new costume. Chameleon and the rest are being mind-controlled to fight with Superior Spider-Man. They are fighting the Wrecking Crew right now. Chameleon and the others aren't mind-controlled all the time, and they vow vengeance on their Superior Spider-Man, still thinking he's the real original one. January 2014, he was in Superior Team-Up 6. Chameleon starts to threaten Superior Spider-Man, and Otto shuts the psychopath down. At the end of their fight against the Masters of Evil, the Six break out of their mind control. Next month, he was in issue 7. It opens with Chameleon changing his look to taunt Spider-Man, so he sees the villains who have died because of him, Green Goblin, Kraven, and Doc Ock. This doesn't affect him in the way it should, since he's really secretly Dr. Octopus, not Peter Parker. Chameleon specifically tells Spider-Man that he will cut off his face and kill his loved ones. It is interesting having Chameleon still treat Superior Spider-Man as if he's Peter Parker, not knowing Superior Spider-Man is always hiding behind a mask just like Dimitri. At the end, it seems like Chameleon gets knocked out by Spidey's suit. Still, in February 2014, he was in Superior Foes of Spider-Man issue 6.
Chameleon has personally come to Boomerang's apartment today to collect. In April, he was in issue 8. Chameleon is getting tired of waiting for Silvermane's head. Chameleon brings Boomerang back to his apartment to torture him in the search for the head. Instead of Dr. Doom's head, he finds a painted portrait of Dr. Doom, an embarrassing one he didn't want anyone to see, so he steals that and considers it even. On April 17, 2014, he was in the end credits of the video game The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Chameleon was voiced by Glenn Steinberg. Secretly dressed as Donald Mencken in the game, Chameleon had been working with Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin. Then he was in Superior Foes of Spider-Man issue 9 in May. Chameleon, while looking at the painting, plays out one of his favorite movie scenes. And one of his henchmen walks in on him. Awkward. To prove to the that Chameleon has the painting, Boomerang starts talking with Chameleon about it. And of course, Chameleon goes for the cliche line and turns into the other person, this, then Boomerang, and then makes the owl think the story is true of Chameleon stealing the owl's painting. In June, he was in Original Sin Secret Avengers issue 1. The Chameleon gets caught up in a misc that started years ago with Nick Fury. Chameleon is currently working for Hydra. In July 2014, he was in Original Sin Secret Avengers issue 2. Chameleon is in a fight with Nick Fury but then gets beaten. Same month, he was in Deadpool Annual 2. Spider-Man grabs Chameleon as he starts screaming for help from others. Deadpool tells Spider-Man that Spidey's the superhero and doesn't just rip random people's faces off, but then Chameleon stabs Spider-Man in the neck with a syringe, so Deadpool just tosses him out a window for Spider-Man to have to web to safety. August 2014, he was in Superior Foes of Spider-Man issue 12. Boomerang with a bunch of other loser villains calling themselves the Sinister 16 are attacking and defeating the Chameleon at his home. Chameleon changes his look to the rogue My Rage to get away, but then Boomerang figures it out and decks him. He appeared in Spider-Man Learning to Crawl issue 1.2 the same month. Peter Parker is at the Goodman Museum of Science and the Chameleon contacts him for a money offer. This is a retelling of issue 1 all the way back. September 2014, he was in Superior Foes of Spider-Man issue 13. Chameleon wakes up and dresses like an EMT to take My Rage and escape the attack scene where the police show up. November 2014, Chameleon was in issue 15. Chameleon and the Owl are teaming up to kill Boomerang. December 2014, he was in issue 16. Chameleon finds Boomerang, but somehow he gets away. And in the same month, he was in issue 17, the last issue of the series. It turns out it wasn't Boomerang in the last issue, but Boomerang stole Chameleon's device to make it look like the hero, Mark 7, looked like Boomerang. March and April 2015, he was in Spider-Man and the X-Men issues 2 and 3. Chameleon is impersonating the superhero Storm for the X-Men to the X-Men rogue Mojo. Spider-Man stops Chameleon's show of him fighting 66 of his supervillains as the TV show producer, but Chameleon escapes his grip. Spider-Man finds out that Chameleon has been impersonating the X-Men members, and Chameleon puts a gun to one of their heads and then creates a mirage of himself. Chameleon tries one more time to change looks to get close enough to kill Spider-Man, but fails and gets webbed to a wall. February 2017, he was in Great Lake Avengers Volume 2, Issue 3. Once again, it was just a cameo. January 2018, Chameleon was in Spider-Man Deadpool Issue 24 and 25. Chameleon has changed to look like Deadpool, called Unpainted Deadpool. Chameleon is doing this to try and get S.H.I.E.L.D. tech. Chameleon gets away and plans for something big. He was then in issue 27 and 28, April 2018. Chameleon is back and impersonating Spider-Man. Deadpool finds him and the two start fighting. But this Chameleon seems to have superpowers. We learn it isn't the real Dmitry Smerdyakov, but a life model decoy of him. Something odd is up with Kraven the Hunter. He is nice and working for the Chameleon as if he was his slave. It turns out that it is a robot LMD Kraven, and Chameleon has been making and planning to sell LMDs of other Marvel characters to the highest bidder. He was then in issue 30 and 31. It opens with the Incredible Hulk robbing a bank, but it's really one of the life model decoys the Chameleon has made and sold off. But now Deadpool and Spider-Man have found him. Chameleon had his decoy Captain America torched with a bomb the first 2 stories of a building to kill Spider-Man and Deadpool, but it didn't work. August 2018, he was in issue 33.
Chameleon, turns out, was used for the LMD robots from the people who bought them, and the Kraven the Hunter LMD reminds Dimitri that he is an embarrassment to the family. August 6, 2018, Chameleon made his first and so far only appearance in the cartoon show Marvel's Spider-Man, and Bring on the Bad Guys Part 4, Episode 36 of the series. He is voiced by Patton Oswalt. There's another Spider-Man robbing banks. Spider-Man follows him into an alley and he changes appearances. It is Spider-Man's old enemy, even with it being his first time on the show, the Chameleon. Here, he's just another bad guy. He tries to shoot Spider-Man and changes his look to escape into a crowd. He becomes J. Jonah Jameson, and then there are two JJs yelling at Spidey, but Spider-Man just takes a shot and punches the right one. That knocks the Chameleon out. September 7th, 2018, he was personally referenced by Spider-Man. A new Spider-Man imposter is in town and fighting crooks in the video game Spider-Man PS4, and in it, Spidey thinks it could be the return of his old foe, the Chameleon, but it wasn't, and we don't even get to see the Chameleon physically at all. In September 2018, he was in Spider-Man Deadpool issues 35 through 36. Chameleon impersonates himself as Galactus. He is in a Galactus robot and fights the Master Matrix, and a bunch of Spider-Man and Deadpool are in the mix. On December 14th, 2018, the Chameleon was mentioned as being in the original Spider-Man's universe by showing a cover of Amazing Spider-Man issue 186. January 2019, he was in Punisher Volume 12, issue 4. Today, the Chameleon has a strange partner, the Punisher's greatest enemy, Jigsaw. And they are both working for Baron Zemo. To make things worse for Chameleon, the Punisher is in a gun war with the two rogues. Chameleon gets away in the end, being he just got out of the raft. On July 2nd, 2019, Chameleon made his movie appearance in disguise in Spider-Man Far From Home. Dmitry Smerdikov was working alongside Nick Fury and Maria Hill during their operations in Europe in the aftermath of the blip in 2024. He was portrayed by actor Newman Akar. Chameleon just stands around, he doesn't really do anything, and he doesn't even take his mask off. So next, the Chameleon made a little appearance in Absolute Carnage vs. Deadpool issue 1, October 2019. He's in a splash panel of Spider-Man and Deadpool running away from all of Spidey's enemies. Chameleon was the villain again in Amazing Spider-Man issue 830, November 2019. Chameleon has snuck into S.H.I.E.L.D. and kidnapped and is torturing an agent. He wants S.H.I.E.L.D.'s creations so he can sell them to the highest bidder. Spider-Man and his little sister Teresa Parker find Chameleon, but he gets away after killing the agent. And then, last month to this day in December 2019, the Chameleon made his final appearance today in the Amazing Spider-Man issue 833. Chameleon is making a trade with the rogue foreigner who wants the Infinity Formula. Spider-Man and his sister show up to unsettle their little trade. His last panel here, Chameleon is being attacked by Teresa. And that is all with the Chameleon. Definitely a humongous video to kick off this decade with. Wow. That was everything about anything with the character Chameleon to this date, December 2019. Chameleon still isn't one of my top Spider-Man rogues, but I do appreciate him a lot more now since I've seen everything about him. Hopefully he'll be in more video games and make an actual movie appearance. He is one of those Spider-Man rogues who can be silly or scary in a heartbeat, and it can still be really good. My favorite appearance of the Chameleon is during the early 90s with his complications with Peter Parker's parents and his stories with his brother Kraven. What else I have to say will be in the description. It's amazing if you have watched this whole video from the start. Making these videos in this channel is a fun hobby of mine I'm glad people find interest in. Please consider liking the video and commenting down below. With all that said, thanks for watching and have a great new year. Happy 2020 and here's to a brand new decade.